Well, guys, as promised, this video is going to be non-wrestling related today, as I'm going to talk about various TV shows of the comic books slash superhero inspired ilk. But before I get into all of that, a couple quick updates. My next wrestling video will come probably early next week, either Monday or Tuesday, and that will be a review of Elimination Chamber. Obviously, I'm going to make time to watch the show on Sunday, and I will check it out and provide a review for you early next week. I am also planning, I haven't watched them yet, but I'm also planning on watching some of the Battle of the Super Juniors tournament from New Japan, and what was the other one? It was the Lucha Libre World Cup. I'm going to try and check that out as well. So I'll have a lot of wrestling shows to review and provide you in my next video, which will also be the video where I list my top 10 favorite matches of the month of May and my brand of the month as well. So, yeah. So if you're starved for wrestling-related material, it'll all be in the next video sometime early next week. I also wanted to let people know that I will be attending AwesomeCon this weekend. I'm going to be there all 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So for those of you in the Washington, D.C. area, you know, if you see me walking around AwesomeCon, say hi. It'll be cool. Actually, for you wrestling fans out there, two of the guests are going to be Seth Rollins and Natalya. I believe they're doing a Q&A on Friday. And Friday's going to be the only day they're available. So if you were not aware of that, there you go. Attend AwesomeCon to see Seth Rollins and Natalya. It's going to be a blast. So I do plan on meeting both of them, so that should be really cool. You know, mark out a little bit talking to Seth and Natalya. So we'll see how that goes. It should be fun. But like I said, this is going to be a TV show centric video, mainly of the superhero slash comic book inspired shows. But even before I get into that, I did want to talk a little bit about Game of Thrones, even though I've never read the books, so I have nothing. Not a whole lot to provide as far as context, as far as the books go, but so many people talked about last week's episode and how it ended. An ending that was spoiled for me, by the way. So I didn't even get the shock value of it. But I did watch it, and I will comment on it. I even saw this past episode, which had the follow-up to it, so I will comment on that as well. And the big hullabaloo about Sansa Stark marrying Ramsay Bolton, I guess now. He's Ramsay Bolton, not Ramsay Snow anymore. Marrying him, and then he violently rapes her while Theon Greyjoy watches in the background. Or, I'm sorry, Reek. Is his name. There was a huge uproar about this and saying that the show jumped the shark. You know, they raped the Stark, so they jumped the shark. But, you know, there's a huge uproar about it. A lot of people were disgusted by it and blah, 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 all that other stuff. And just a huge fallout, which is kind of the reaction that you would probably expect from the raping of a major character in any TV show. It's bound to get a reaction. But my whole take on it, an act like this is not outside of the scope of Game of Thrones. I feel like it kind of fits in their horrible little universe that they created, because I don't know if you've noticed, but Westeros is kind of a shitty place where horrible things happen to people all the time. How many characters have it in their backstory that they were raped? A lot. That's the answer to that question. So really something like this is not outside of the scope of possibility for the show. So it wasn't really that shocking to me, or even that disgusting. I mean, it is disgusting. Rape is very disgusting and very awful. But within the realm of the show, it didn't really... I don't think it was a jumping the shark moment, at least on paper, or at least in concept, because it's the type of thing that they do all the time. Maybe not to major characters, but, you know, rape has been kind of a common theme in George R.R. Martin's world, so to me it wasn't all that shocking, especially since when I found out Sansa was marrying Ramsay, I was like, oh, that's not going to end well for her at all. That's going to be awful. So if they didn't do it, I would have called bullshit, because I'm like, no, he's a violent monster. Of course he's going to rape her. He's a psychopath. I mean, look what he did to Theon. I mean, technically, what he did to Theon, to me, that was rape. What he did to him, and that they stretched that sucker out for an entire season of, you know, I jokingly called it the passion of Theon Greyjoy. I mean, it was pretty disturbing and pretty awful, and so yeah, Ramsay's he is an awful character, just an awful, awful human being in this world. So it was not surprising that things turned out the way they did. So I don't necessarily have too much of a problem with it in concept. the problem... Okay, first of all, I've heard that none of this happens in the book. And that's what I've been told from those that have read the book, that these two characters don't even interact. Like, Sansa and Ramsay never even share any time together. So they never get married, no rapey, none of that happens. So I can see where that rubs people the wrong way, because it kind of reeks, yeah, pardon the pun, it reeks of them trying to create something gratuitous to shock people and get them talking. And I think the show... Again, I haven't read the books, but apparently the show is getting to a point where it's either overtaking the show or it's getting very close to overtaking the show. Or, I'm sorry, overtaking the books. So they're just kind of making up shit as they go and just hoping that they can keep this keep this money train going. So I can see how it can be written off as something that was just done to be gratuitous and something that was done just for shock value, which is a very clumsy way to use rape as a story element. I criticized The Walking Dead for doing that same thing. Last season, or right around the time I stopped watching, where it felt like every character was motivated by either they were raped so it turned them bad, or they were going to get raped so they had to get out of that situation, or their family was raped and that's what motivates them, or this person's going to get raped so we have to save them, or whatever. It quite often... rape can be used as a very clumsy story device. And yeah, again, rape is awful. It's probably the worst thing you could ever do to another human being. But so often it's just, like I said, it's used very clumsily. And where a lot of the problems come in is the focus of the after effect of the act it doesn't fall on the victim. To me, and that's where a lot of rape stories go wrong with me in entertainment. It's like, to me, the focus should be on the victim and how the victim's going to get out of it, or how the victim is changed by such a horrible, horrible act being performed on them. And two instances of where rape was used very effectively, I thought, were All in the Family, where Edith Bunker was almost raped, and I just lost it. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Where Elizabeth got revenge on her rapist 100-fold and made it like the most satisfying revenge story ever told. I mean, I saw that movie in theaters and the audience was like friggin'... Okay, on paper, completely disturbing scene when she gets revenge on the rapist. Nobody felt sorry for him, and I am not joking, applause throughout the entire scene. And it's like arguably the darkest scene in the movie, but people were applauding. It's like, yeah, nobody feels sorry for him, he deserved it. But in any case, the reason both of those worked for me is because the focus was on the victim and how the victim responds to what goes on. To me, the Edith Bunker situation, that was one of the best episodes that All in the Family ever did, because I was sitting there watching it just on the edge of my seat the whole time. I'm like, they can't be doing this to Edith. They can't. They cannot be doing this. And then she gets away from the situation, and then like the whole second half of the episode is all about, because it was an hour-long episode, if I recall, is about how she's been shaken and traumatized by the whole experience. Excuse me. And again, I thought it was one of the best episodes that All in the Family ever did. So those are two instances where rape was used very effectively. But far too often it's used as a weak excuse to add resonance to another protagonist and add to their motivation. Like I said in The Walking Dead, oh, Beth is going to get raped, so Daryl has to get to that hospital as fast as possible. Oh, Abraham's family was raped, so it motivated him to be a killer, and then, you know, and that's like, you know, it all affects his motivation and not the victims, like his wife and kids or whatever. So yeah, and that's where a lot of rape stories go south with me. And here's the problem where Game of Thrones could be hitting a really big pitfall here. And I've said this before about Sansa. It's not that I hate her as a character. To me, she's not a character. She's a prop. She exists for the sole purpose of getting wailed on and her life being miserable so that bad guys can look worse and good guys can look better. I mean, when she was in King's Landing, she was just there to make Joffrey look worse and to make Tyrion look better. Because Tyrion was all noble and kind to her, so he ends up looking like a good person. Joffrey treated her like dog shit and, like, you know, he's a fucking monster, so yeah, it made him look even worse. But really, you know, none of those acts and none of those events, they hardly affected her. It was more like, oh, she's just there to get wailed on so other people can react. So I look at this situation here and it's like, all right, this character just got married to a psychopath who was a part of the family that killed her family, and he raped her on her wedding night while Theon is forced to watch the whole thing and cry or whatever. And I'm like, all right, is she going to do anything? Or is she just playing damsel in distress until Brienne shows up, or until Littlefinger bails her out, or until Theon snaps out of his funk and helps save her, or whatever they're going to do. And that's my fear, is that ultimately Sansa is going to do nothing, and she's going to sit there, be miserable, like she always is, and nothing's really going to come of it. And that's where a lot of the naysayers are going to have some credence to their argument, is where nothing is going to come out of this. It's just Sansa's there to make Ramsay look worse, and to make whoever her hero is look even better. And it's really, that's Sansa's character in a nutshell. And I'm waiting for her to do something. I'm waiting for her to be proactive, like Arya, like Brienne, like take their story into their own hands and make something happen. I'm not saying she has to be the most powerful female character in the history of the show or anything. I'm just saying, do something, anything. I don't care what. And in this past episode, which was the follow-up to it, it looked like she was trying to do something, but then everything just goes south for her. But again, it's like the nugget is there for her to kind of take control of her own story and finally do something, because it felt like that's what they were building her up to at the end of last season, where it's like, oh, she can be she can be a little manipulative herself and play Littlefinger's game, but that ultimately went nowhere. But I do like that she's like still like snappy with Ramsay, and she's like, openly, antagonistic towards him and stuff like that. And even though she's in this horrible situation, she's still got a temper and she'll still snap at him. I mean, that's fine and well and good and everything, but again, I'm waiting for her to do something to kind of shape the story. But as of right now, I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for her to get saved by Brienne and Podrick or somebody. I don't know. But we'll see how it all plays out. So I wasn't overly offended by it because, like I said, Game of Thrones, they do this type of stuff. It's kind of commonplace for them. I'm surprised the scene wasn't more graphic, quite honestly, because Game of Thrones, they do some pretty violent shit. So I was actually... When it was spoiled for me, I was like, oh, that scene must be really, really hard to watch. And it is, but I thought it was going to be a lot more like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo level bad, and how graphic and awful that scene was when Elizabeth got raped. So, yeah, I don't know if it's like a jumping the shark moment for the show. It could be. But, like I said, for right now, to me, it's just more par for the course for Sansa. It's like, all right, what horrible thing can we do to her to... keep that little train going. And, it's like, all right, who has to save her and who do we need to make look like a jackass? Okay, good, go. And I feel like that's all the thought that's ever put into Sansa's character. I could be completely wrong, and maybe she could end up being awesome. I don't know. But as for right now, it's like, yeah, whatever. And now that I got that unpleasantness out of the way, let's talk about something a little bit happier, and that is the just huge group of TV shows that have come out in the last season or so. I mean, some of them are 2 and 3 seasons old, but it feels like lately we've been getting a lot of live action, comic book / superhero related dramatic TV shows, and for the most part, I'd have to say most of them are really good, and I've caught up on most of them. I'm still... All right, let's just get this out of the way now. I'm still 7 episodes behind on The Walking Dead. I saw the mid-season premiere, and for those of you that didn't catch my whole review of the previous run of episodes from last year, the first half of season 5, go check that video out. I'll provide a link in the description, and you get to hear me rant for an hour about how that group of episodes was just fucking terrible, and I hated it, and I completely turned on the show because of it. I watched the mid-season premiere. I hated it, and the show just didn't get any better. Now, I've heard that in the last 3 or 4 episodes, the show gets really good again. I don't know if I want to put that level of trust into Walking Dead again, because I feel like, look, the last 9 episodes have just pissed me off, so... Do I want to watch these last 7? I don't know. Just so it might, because I've heard that it might get better or whatever, but... We'll see. I'm sure I'll watch it at some point. But yeah, I'm still behind on The Walking Dead, and I don't know if I'll ever go back because the first half of season 5 really was that bad. It really, really was. But I don't think I've turned on a show that hard since G.I. Joe introduced Serpentor and replaced Cobra Commander with Serpentor. I was like, nope, fuck you, I'm done. But yeah, Walking Dead, not a fan at this point in time. But there are plenty of other comic book based shows out there. One that I've started watching, its first season is still going. I think it's got like 3 episodes left. iZombie. Which I didn't even know there was a comic. I just saw previews for the show on CW while I was watching Flash and Arrow. And I was watching these previews and just thinking, man, that show looks horrible. It looks really fucking stupid. And then just on a lark, I checked it out because I'm like, I got to see how bad this show is because it looks terrible. And I watched it, and to be perfectly honest, it's not that bad. It's actually kind of solid and kind of entertaining. I've talked to people that have compared it to Veronica Mars, which I never watched, so I can't really say if that is an apt description. I know that a lot of the same people are writing for it or created it or whatever, but apparently it's very similar in tone and presentation to Veronica Mars, which, you know, if it is great, I don't know. I've never watched Veronica Mars, but I didn't know there was a comic to iZombie either, so that was also another surprise for me. So I'm going into this like just completely based off these shitty previews, or at least what I thought were shitty previews. I'm like, man, this looks terrible. But the show is actually a lot of fun, and I kind of dig it, and it's really kind of kooky and weird. If you can get over the bizarre premise, which is basically a girl becomes a zombie, but zombies in this universe retain they're sentient. They can actually still think and feel for themselves. They just crave human brains. So she works in a morgue where she gets access to all the brains that she needs, and every time she eats a brain, she gets the thoughts and feelings of the person of the brain the person that owned the brain that she's eating, and she uses those visions to help solve murders, which again sounds completely absurd, but you know, the mysteries and, you know, the more lighthearted tone of the show, and quite honestly, the lead actress herself, who was very charming, Rose McIver, I think her name is, very, very likable. And the way she bounces off all the other characters, like her detective partner and her boss and everything, it's like, wow, this is actually a fun show. Like, it's actually like this lighthearted romp of a show, and I never thought I would ever use the words lighthearted to describe a zombie show, but it's a crime-fighting zombie show, so you kind of, you know, you just gotta take it with that, I guess. But yeah, who knows? Maybe one day I'll check out the comics too. But yeah, I think the show's surprisingly fun, and I did not expect to like this show at all. But I was like, no, this is pretty solid. I'm not saying it's great. The show is extremely formulaic. Like, every episode hits the same beats, where it's like, all right, murder happens, she eats brain, she pals around with the detective, they chase down leads, and then she gets visions along the way, and then they figure out who did it, and then you get a climax and blah, 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 whatever. So the episodes are extremely formulaic, but at least the formula's fun, and at least the characters are fun, so I kind of go along with it. So yeah, the show's really fun, and that's another thing. A lot of these shows are actually kind of female-centric. And I guess this is where I'll springboard into Marvel. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot of female characters on it. Agent Carter, the main character, is a female. So Daredevil, even though Daredevil's male, he's surrounded by female characters like Night Nurse, who shows up, which I actually kind of popped for that. I was like, oh, hey, they worked Night Nurse in. That's kind of cool. But I'll get to Daredevil in a minute. But yeah, Marvel, they're putting out so many, in addition to all the movies that are blockbuster, you know, box office smashes, they've splintered off their little universe into all these other TV shows and everything. And I'll be honest, all 3 of them, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, and Daredevil, I think are all very good. Daredevil is the best one by far. And I'll get into why in a minute. But to cover the other ones, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., everybody has talked about it. Starts off a little slow, but trust me, stick with it. And once it catches up to Winter Soldier, and they do the Hydra reveal, the show becomes amazing. I mean, it really does. It just becomes an incredible show. And season 2, I was like, how are they going to follow that up? Because the whole Hydra thing was just a a great reveal during season 1 and really got the show on track. How are they going to follow that up? Well, now they're doing the Inhumans, and they're bringing in the Kree next season. We got this killer cliffhanger where poor Simmons, I mean, God knows what happened to her. I mean, is she going to be like, is she dead? Is it going to be like the Thing? Was she absorbed, and they're going to, like, you know, have an evil Simmons clone that's like this Kree artifact thing possessing her or whatever? I don't know. It's really bizarre. We'll find out next season. It'll be a blast. It'll be fun. The 2-hour finale in particular was great, where we got the war between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Inhumans, the evil Inhumans, that is. Mr. Hyde's costume was a little shitty, but other than that, I thought the 2-hour finale was very, very good. And it almost played out like a movie. It was almost like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the movie. And I really like the way the show's grown and developed and become its own thing. And now it looks like we're going to get, you know, Skye leading her own group of Inhumans within S.H.I.E.L.D., like her own S.H.I.E.L.D.-sanctioned group of superhumans. So that should be a lot of fun. And it'll be really interesting to see how everything plays out next season, especially since the Kree is being worked into it. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I was against the show initially because I saw that Coulson was going to be alive in the show, and I was like, oh, God damn it, why? Because I hate it when death has no consequence, and I'll get into that when I talk about Flash and Arrow and the DC CW television universe or whatever. But I hate when death has no consequence, but to be fair, they made this work. Coulson is such a great character that he's really a great centerpiece for the whole thing. And I also have to say, the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. versus S.H.I.E.L.D. thing that they did this season was actually a nice little surprise as well. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because it's like, how did Coulson manage to get, like, did he really get every element of S.H.I.E.L.D. under his control when he reformed it at the end of season 1? Probably not, and sure enough, he didn't. So I thought that paid off really well. Ward went from being, and this is what I talk about with John Cena all the time, he would be the best character in the world if he was a heel. Ward, the most boring character on the show in season 1, then they do the Hydra heel turn, and he becomes the best character on the show. He's the most interesting, he's the most fun to watch, he's everything, he's great. And looks like he's going to be the new leader of Hydra next season, so that should be interesting as well. So yeah, they've set up a lot of good things with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's this show that started off a little weak, but really grew and developed into something really good. So again, if you're having trouble getting through those early season 1 episodes, trust me, stick with it. You will not be sorry. So yeah, I really highly recommend Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I really liked Agent Carter, and I'm happy that it's coming back for a second season, because there was some doubt there, but I was really happy with it. And it works best. I really liked that it was just an 8-episode season. So it was a lot shorter, a lot more concise, not a whole lot of time to drag. It was allowed to be a very cool miniseries, and you know, Agent Carter's a great character. I like the 1940s setting and all of that stuff, because it's more, you know, everything's more gadget oriented, and I love all the you know, I just love that time period and the way it looks and the way it's presented and the way it's romanticized and everything, and all the things that they do, like the Captain America radio show and all that stuff, and the action's great, and it's just good old fun. It's one of the reasons I like The Rocketeer so much, and quite honestly, it's one of the reasons I liked the first Captain America movie so much. I just love those 1940 period pieces. I think that they're just a lot of fun. Indiana Jones, that's another one. I really liked. I mean, I guess that's 1930s, but still, you know, you get my point. Excuse me. So yeah, Agent Carter, really liked that show. I don't think enough people watched it. A friend of mine told me that it was the best show on TV that nobody's watching, which I don't know. I mean, it got renewed for a second season, so somebody was watching it, but it wasn't like this smash hit that it should have been. I was like, no, I think it's great. I think people should check it out. But yeah, I hope it comes back next season. Like, you'll get the first half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., then you get Agent Carter as kind of the mid-season break, and then you get the second half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I hope they do that again, because I really like that. And I liked Agent Carter, like I said, I liked it being like a short, almost mini-series. Like, and I thought it, you know, it flowed better, it was paced better, and it was just a lot more fun that way. But, yeah, so I highly recommend Agent Carter. And then the third Marvel show I have to talk about is Daredevil on Netflix, which got universal praise from everybody that watched it, and I'm in that same camp. The show is absolutely terrific, and the best way I can describe it, this is the show that Gotham wants to be. This is the show that Gotham is, I guess, trying to be and somewhat fails. And I'm going to talk about Gotham in a little bit. But, yeah, Daredevil, it was just an outstanding show. It manages to be both a fun superhero show and a dark, gritty crime drama all at the same time. And it has like, everything. The characters are great. I love Foggy. I love Kristen. I love, like I said, I marked out for Night Nurse when they brought her in. I thought that was a nice touch. I like Stick. Kingpin was awesome. One of the best, and I'll go this far, probably the best villain I've seen in a comic book adaptation since Heath Ledger's Joker. He was that good. I mean, he was just an outstanding performance and just a really kind of unsettling, prone to anger, type of character that was always left you feeling uneasy. And it was just a wonderful performance, and I loved it. And he should probably get an Emmy. It was that good of a performance. But yeah, and the way they handled Daredevil's origin and the way his powers work and everything, again, all very good. Everything that the Ben Affleck movie is not, or at least I've been told that the director's cut of that film is very good. I've never watched it. I never wanted to watch it because I wasn't a huge fan of the theatrical cut. And to be perfectly honest, it's not that the theatrical cut is that terrible. It's just not that memorable or good. It's just kind of bleh. But no, this show is very, very, very good, and one of the arguably the best thing that Marvel's done since they've done this whole cinematic universe of theirs. So yeah, and again, they've set up some great things for season 2. Obviously, Stick is going to come back, and they've set up certain things to be built up for the future. It makes me wonder if the Defenders is in the works based on some of their other television projects that they want to do. So. Yeah, Marvel, they're really killing it with TV shows, at least in terms of quality. I think, like I said, I think all 3 of their shows are great. And I highly recommend all 3 of them. And then you get into the DC side of things. Well, I mean, their 2 biggest shows are on the CW, and it's going to expand. There's going to be another show, Legends of Tomorrow, I believe it's called, which could be good. I've heard Vandal Savage is going to be the villain, and it's going to be involving time travel and stuff. I'm like, okay, that could be cool. My one knock on it is that Sarah is coming back and is going to be the White Canary in the show, and she's going to be one of the heroes. I hate that because I hate that death has no consequence, because the big thing that they did in Arrow this season was that they killed her off. And I'm not saying I disliked her as a character or anything. I did like her. I actually liked her a lot, but when they killed her, that was such a shock, and it really drove the storylines for the entire season, for better or for worse, but I'll get into that. I just wish that if you're going to kill a character, just stick to it, and if you're not going to stick to it, then don't kill her in the first place, Death has no consequence. Death should have consequence, and it's the same thing I said about Agent Coulson heading into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it doesn't spell gloom and doom for the show or anything. I'm just kind of like, why bring her back? Stop doing that. But anyway, yeah, let's talk about Arrow and Flash, starting with Arrow, which had its 3rd season, and I would say, unfortunately, the weakest season so far. Arrow is one of those shows that does a lot of cool things. The superhero stuff is really cool. The setting's really cool. The actors, for the most part, are really good. It just has a few of those elements, and I think this is the side effect of being on the CW, which is marketed more towards a more teenage demographic, that there's a lot of shipping going on. And this season took it to a whole nother level with the whole Oliver and Felicity shipping bullcrap, which I could not stand. I just, first of all, I don't even like them as a couple. I'm not even like a hardcore shipper. It's like, oh, Felicity should be with this guy instead or whatever. But I just legit do not like them as a couple, because it's like, it's the episode 2 thing with Padme and Anakin, where all they do is just stand there and mope around and be all droopy droops and over dramatize everything, and it's just like, fucking hell, I don't care. But they don't strike me as a very natural couple. They just kind of mopey dope around, and that's it. And it doesn't help that Felicity was a character that I liked initially in the first 2 seasons, and they really Mary Sue'd the holy fuck out of her this season, where she always going off on these tangents where she's always right, and every superhero that comes across her falls in love with her, apparently, because she had a brief little thing with the Flash, Barry, before he became the Flash. Then she's always harbored feelings for Oliver, and then they eventually consummated that this season. And but before that, in between, she was shacking up with the Atom, Ray Palmer, who got the ultimate friend zone by the time that was over. But Felicity got really, really annoying. And it's funny because in the early seasons of Arrow, Laurel was the annoying one, and it was like, screw Laurel, I want more of Felicity. And now this season, I'm kind of like, Felicity became this obnoxious, overly pontificating Mary Sue of a character. And I was like, oh God, go away, you're annoying. Laurel actually developed into something that was tolerable. She became the Black Canary after her sister got killed. I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time building her up to that point, but she's not a perfectly proficient superhero yet, but she developed into something that was entertaining to watch, and her growth and development throughout the season was fun. Although she took a back seat. She actually, it's like, they cut back on her just when she was getting interesting. It's like, oh well, just take it while you can, or whatever. But so it's kind of like the shipping thing that they did with Oliver and Felicity got really, really ridiculous. It was really kind of the downfall of this whole season. We even get to this point where Ra's al Ghul, who's the main villain in this season, even played shipper and basically got Felicity and Oliver to sleep with each other for the first time. And I'm like, wait a minute, Ra's al Ghul is a shipper? That's a unique take on the character. Never would have expected that. But yeah, I mean, really, the constant back and forth with Felicity and Oliver just got really, really annoying this season. It was really a major problem, which is a shame because there were a lot of other things that they did that they liked. I already talked about Laurel. I haven't talked about this, actually. Thea developed, I thought, quite nicely this season. And ultimately took on the mantle of Speedy by the end, which I thought was really cool. And I thought they got her into a pretty good place to where she could be that. And I thought they did some cool things with her. So that was all fun. Ray Palmer, who's played by Brandon Routh, former failed Superman, really good, very likable character and very good performance from Brandon. They just didn't give him a whole lot to do, and he just kind of came off like a second-rate Iron Man because the suit doesn't miniaturize yet, so he just looks like C-rate Iron Man. And I know the Atom predates Iron Man, but I mean, come on, who's like infected pop culture more at this point, Iron Man or the Atom? So that's just one of those unfortunate things. But he just didn't have a whole lot to do except play Goo Goo Gaga with Felicity until he got friend-zoned. Pretty much. So again, it's kind of this give and take thing, and then you get to the point towards the end where Ra's al Ghul wants Oliver to be his heir and take over the mantle of Ra's al Ghul once he's gone. And again, very good story idea, and really should have been a major driving force for the rest of the season. The problem is that they get to a point where everybody thinks Oliver is fully bought into the League of Assassins and he's a total bad guy and he's just been completely brainwashed or whatever. And then it turns out, like, the episode, I think it was the episode before the finale, they revealed that he wasn't. He was just kind of trying to tear down the League from the inside. And it's like, okay, well, you kind of took the piss out of your finale because that should have been the major dramatic moment of the finale where Oliver reveals to Ra's that he was working against him the entire time. But once they revealed it to the audience, it kind of really let some of the air out of the tire for the finale, and I thought kind of hurt it, which was, and kind of made the finale feel a little anticlimactic and kind of took that away from it. But, so Arrow, not a bad season. It's just the weakest one so far, and for the reasons that I stated, just a lot of annoying things that probably could and should have been avoided. But overall, some good things, a lot of good ideas. The League of Assassins storyline is made for a nice main thread throughout the entire season. It's just, I just wish that they'd cut back on some of the stupid stuff. But, they'll come back next season. Actually, another problem this season is that the flashbacks were by far the least interesting. Because I thought that was an interesting thing that they did with Arrow in its presentation, that they're constantly showing flashbacks of Oliver's time when he was away from his family, and how he ultimately became the Arrow and how it coincides with the current day events. And I thought that was very interesting. But this season, it didn't really connect until the last few episodes. And until then, it was just kind of boring. But, a couple missteps from Arrow this season, but overall not bad. Then we get The Flash, which was awesome. The first season of that show was a lot of fun. This was like the perfect, like, just totally fun, colorful superhero show. Villains of the week format, and not all the villains worked and everything, but the ones that did work, the Trickster, played by Mark Hamill, awesome. Gorilla Grodd, which could have easily been a joke because of, shitty CGI effects, but they managed to make it look good enough, and Grodd was awesome. And they even managed, when he wasn't on screen, they managed to present Grodd in a way that kept his presence throughout the entire episode without him actually being on screen the whole time, and it was actually really effective and really cool. Reverse Flash was a fantastic villain to have throughout the whole season. Just great stuff all around. Bug-Eyed Bandit didn't really work, and there was also the Rainbow Raider, or whatever that one was. Yeah, the two crossover villains didn't really work for the big crossover episodes. And actually, going back to the Bug-Eyed Bandit, same actress who played Beth in The Walking Dead. It's like, man, I feel bad for her. She gets a shitty write-off from The Walking Dead, and then she comes on to Flash, and she's the big villain of the crossover episode because they brought in the Atom and Felicity to be in this episode, and it was supposed to be a big superhero team-up, and she's going to be the big villain of this episode. She gets about 2 minutes of screen time, and she does nothing but spout bee puns the whole time. And it's like, aw, that actress always getting the short end of the stick. I don't understand. I don't get it, but whatever. But in any case, I think going back to the Flash's strengths, I think the cast is very likable. Cisco is great. I love that character with his, just constant optimism and his constant movie references and all that stuff. The way he bounces off other characters is great. Like when they did crossover episodes, his interactions with Laurel, that might be the most fun Laurel has ever been. And she, 3 seasons on Arrow, and then 1 episode in The Flash. I'm like, I liked her a lot more in that 1 episode of The Flash than I probably did in her entire run on Arrow. So I don't know if that's Cisco just bringing out the best in everybody, or if it's just the fact that Flash is just a more fun and lighthearted show, so it just allows people to be more fun. I don't know, but it was just a really, really fun show with great dramatic elements. I'll be honest, the season finale had its flaws, mainly in some time travel continuities and some of the ethical questions at hand. Because in my mind, if you find out that you going back in time to save your mom could ultimately blow up the Earth, maybe you shouldn't do it at all. But in any case, there were legitimate moments in the finale where it kind of brought a tear to my eye a little bit. It was legitimately emotional, and some nice payoffs throughout the entire season as well. So, and it ends on a pretty kick-ass cliffhanger as well, with the Flash running into a black hole. What's going to happen next season? All sorts of fun stuff. So, Flash is very, very good, and one of my more favorite comic book adaptation TV shows out there. It's certainly the best one on CW, at least. And I highly recommend that one if you're looking for something that's a lot more fun and a lot more colorful and energetic and everything. I really did enjoy that show. And here's hoping for more great stuff in season 2. So that will be a lot of fun as well. I believe I've talked about all the ones on CW. Yeah, okay. Now I believe that leaves one more for me to talk about. Before I get into that, I should also note I have not seen Constantine, and there are a couple other ones that I haven't seen. I think Powers is one that's been out. I haven't seen it. I've heard that the new Constantine is not very good, but again, I can't judge for myself. I haven't seen it. But the last show to talk about is Gotham. Now, I've talked about it before, where I said, and I believe I made this comment about halfway through the season, where Gotham is a show that exists. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's just sort of there. Maybe they can build into something better. Who knows? I'll keep watching it and just see what happens. Watching the last few episodes of the season, I can truthfully say that the show got a lot worse. It got really stupid. Like, really, really stupid. That finale was ungodly, just insufferably dumb. From Catwoman, or Catgirl, I guess we'll call her, joining up with Fish Mooney for no reason. No build-up, no nothing. She just joins up with a gang and starts killing people. And it's like, okay, cool. Where's the build-up there? I feel like there's a piece of the story missing. Then Barbara Gordon, or I guess the who we all thought was going to be Barbara Gordon or whatever. Well, Jim Gordon's, I believe, fiance at the start of the season, but they broke up and whatever because nobody cares because she's a boring character anyway, so nobody cares. But she got kidnapped by a serial killer named the Ogre and apparently got brainwashed in 2 days, and now she's a serial killer. And then in the finale, she ends up having this bizarrely sexualized catfight with Professor Tompkins, Leslie Tompkins, there we go, who is dating Jim Gordon now because, you know, I don't know about you, but when I watched Batman the Animated Series, I totally shipped Leslie Tompkins and Jim Gordon, and I was like, man, I bet in their youth they would have fucked like jackrabbits, and I'm being completely sarcastic there because I do not care. And to me, shouldn't Leslie Tompkins be interacting with Bruce? Wasn't that the whole idea of the character, was that she was a confidant of a young Bruce Wayne after his parents were murdered? And I don't think they shared any screen time together. She was just Jim's girlfriend, and that's it. And so she gets into a weird sexual catfight with Jim's ex-girlfriend, who is now a serial killer for some reason. Okay. And then you get the Riddler, who works in the crime lab of the precinct, and he is clearly insane from the very beginning and not a normal guy, but he ends up murdering the abusive boyfriend of the girl that he has a crush on, ends up murdering him, and then leaves a riddle as like or either subconsciously or whatever, leaves a riddle to the girlfriend to figure out that he did it. And it's like, okay, that makes sense because he's the Riddler and that's kind of his obsessive-compulsive nature. What I do not understand is why he would bring the body to the precinct to destroy. I'm like, dude, I feel like there are a million other ways you could have done that. I mean, I know the Riddler is kind of self-destructive and, you know, basically derails his own crime sprees, but that one is like, dude... I don't think people need a riddle to see you dragging a body in there and then watching you dispose of it, destroy it, or do whatever. But so that was really stupid, and I didn't like that either. And God, what else pissed me off? The whole mob war. Well, Falcone ultimately decides, you know, I'm going to retire and leave the mob business, and I'm going to give Jim some advice, and I'm going to be the wise sage here. And it's like, oh, no, you're kind of a despicable person, aren't you? Aren't you like an evil mob boss? No, okay, whatever. I don't care anymore. And apparently the whole mob has been destroyed except for Penguin, who is now ascended to become the king of Gotham. In the really over-the-top and silly scene with Fish Mooney where he throws her off the building after her brainwashed sidekick helps Penguin kill her. I don't know. It was stupid. The whole thing was stupid. The whole... the last few episodes of Gotham got really, 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 really stupid. And I don't know if it was a side effect of them just having too many episodes and they just needed to stretch out. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but the last few episodes got really dumb. And it all ended with Bruce Wayne finding out that his dad has a Batcave. Okay, sure. His dad knew about the Batcave and set it up and everything, and then there's that. Which, I don't know what the end game is with the show. Is the end game to ultimately get Bruce to become Batman? Is that going to be the finale? Is that how we're building this? Because I don't see this show lasting that long. I could be wrong. Oh, and by the way, I do not like Alfred in this show. He's a fucking psychopath. And he needs to get away from Bruce because he strikes me as a crazy person. I don't know. I like that actor typically, but I don't like him as Alfred. He just comes across as too harsh to me. I like softer, more fatherly Alfred, not, you know, he sounds like on the edge of losing his mind Alfred. But in any case, that's Gotham. I thought maybe it could get better. I was wrong. It got much, much worse. And I should throw this out there. I saw the preview for the new Supergirl show. That show looks... I can't believe that's real. I mean, again, it's just looking at previews. I could be completely wrong about it like I was iZombie, but... yeah, it looks like, for any of you who saw that SNL video parody of the Black Widow movie, it's basically that, except apparently it's real, and it doesn't look good. And I'm like, oh my god, that looked terrible. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll find out when it eventually debuts. But I think I've talked enough about TV shows here. But that is all I have for now. Again, thank you all for watching. Excuse me. Be sure to check out the Brainosaur.com, the site that Eric and I run. Link is down below in the description, among other things. And stay tuned for more for other future videos. Like I said, I'm going to have a lot of wrestling reviews in my first video next week, so that one's going to be loaded, so stay tuned for that. If you're going to be at AwesomeCon and you see me walking around, feel free to say hi. I believe there is like one of the events planned there is kind of a wrestling roundtable discussion. I believe that's on Saturday. I could be wrong, but go check out the AwesomeCon website, look at the list of events, whatever. And if you're going to be in the DC area during that time, like I said, have fun at AwesomeCon, and hopefully you get to meet Seth Rollins and Natalya as well. So that is all I have for now. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later.